Hi, I'm speaking with Elmarie Hugo, Senior Director of Industry Strategy at JDA Software. And for those of you that don't know, JDA Software is a leading supplier of best-of-breed supply chain software, including a control tower solution that has come out in the last year or two. And that's what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about control towers. Now, I have not heard much about control towers for ports, but that is what we're going to be talking about today. I think maybe the place to start is, what are the problems ports are looking to solve?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. The problem ports are facing is quite significant, and if you consider the macroeconomic impact it has for countries to have highly efficient ports, then it is problematic for them, and it's important for them to address those inefficiencies. And control towers are actually quite relevant for them. Control tower is not a new concept, it's probably 20 plus years old, but the technology has evolved in such a way that we can today have access to data through multiple architectures within our structures, and near real time or actual real time. And for ports to have visibility of what is coming to them and what their bottlenecks are and where they are is hugely important, because it can really translate very well into an improvement in the GDP of a country. PwC completed a study where they did the outcome of the conclusion was that 25% efficiency improvement resulted in a 2% improvement in the GDP for the country. So it is important. It is the hearts and lungs of the country. If the ports don't work, then the body becomes congested.
Yeah. And, you know, when I think of control towers, I think of a lot of it being predictive, trying to understand, you know, are the ships going to get here on time? And probably other things at the port as well. You know, are they going to operate well? But I think some modes are more difficult than other modes, aren't they? I mean, if it's truckload, that's a lot more predictable than ocean. Or am I wrong on that?
I don't think one can make that distinction. I think if there's a delay, and the impacts or the causal effects of those delays are felt through the supply chain. I think it's the frequency with which those events occur that really translate into, was it an air freight, road freight, or ocean freight, container or shipment that went awry. Of course, the volume of product that's being shipped also differs, right? So it comes from massive to smaller to very small. So the impact by volume and by unit size is impacted then in terms of which mode of operandus you were using. But I think the ports are suffering as much as the transportation carrier, the road freight carrier, and also the air freight carriers are doing. And for them, the visibility of where there is a deviation on the expected is really important. So being able to see that in real time and to know what to do to mitigate the results of that deviation is really key. And then the layer that you mentioned, the predictive capabilities, which is of course now being enabled through AI and ML, becomes really part of the conversation, where you can, or the tools learn through behavioral observation, and over time starts to see there's a pattern, and these were the better of the actions to take in terms of mitigating the deviation.
Right, okay. And so we've talked about a little bit about the initiatives. Are there ports doing this? Is this more futuristic?
No, it's not futuristic. I think it's very relevant. I'm working with a colleague of mine, an ex-colleague of mine at the Erasmus University in Rotterdam. And he is partly working with the Rotterdam port authorities. And this is a hot topic. The ports are under pressure for higher efficiency and higher productivity. And there are so many things you can do. It's not infinite, though. You can dredge the port, you can expand the size of it, you can increase the number of material handling equipment that you have, highly capital intensive, of course. But with the ultra-large container ships now coming into the equation, you can imagine it's the same body that now needs to eat 3 plates of food at the same time. So the congestion issue is becoming much more pronounced. So therefore, the necessity to know that this bay is available and that crane is available. And then if you look at your hinterland issue, right, you've got 3PL transportation providers standing at the gate waiting for the containers to be released. if they have to stand there and idle, they too have a problem ultimately, and specifically in an environment where we continuously hear shortages of drivers and shortages of trucks and not in the right capacity. So you can expand the roads, you can dredge the port, you can do as many things as you wish, but it's a finite list. And ultimately, there are inefficiencies in creating that additional capacity because it's still, if they're idle, there's fuel being burned unnecessarily and resources being tied up unnecessarily with no action that follows.
Right. So mitigation is a key word, and I think another key word is, this is not an optimization issue, right? This is an orchestration issue?
It's orchestration with an ultimate result of optimization, but orchestration is a really good choice of words for it, because with the visibility that you have now and with the connectivity that you have up and downstream through all your partners in this chain of events, they can better orchestrate what is happening. If a ship knows that it's idle, or rather, if a ship knows the port doesn't have the capacity to receive it, it can start burning less fuel and travel slower at a slower speed. So that has a carbon footprint immediately. There's an impact there, right?
Right.
And it's not going to hover outside the port for days on end without being able to be received. And likewise on the hinterland side, the trucks aren't going to arrive there when they were told to. They will hold back, and they could do 2 or 3 other days of exercise that's revenue generating and sweating their assets.
Right. To me, those are the most common events that would come up: congestion in the port, and then coordinating with the trucks. What are some of the other issues that can drive this out of whack? Is it ever customs? Is it ever, cargo being pulled off to the side for days at a time? Or what are we talking about here?
Well, it could be all of those. It could also be transshipments that went horribly wrong, or a pirate event, or a ship that ran aground, God forbid.
Yeah.
Or a terrorist attack, for example. So weather events quite frequently are the most prevalent in terms of, or ship that ran aground simply because it got too close to the coast and got blown on shore and now it's stranded. And then the containers that get lost on sea too. That happens when they have very high waters. So there's a number of events that happen, but all of these are acts of God, but none of them are predicted.
Right.
And that's the unforeseen that we're trying to mitigate for.
Right. So the control tower is run by the Port Authority, but collaboration with all the players is critical to make this work.
That's the vision.
Yeah.
So the port authorities globally should ultimately have a global network of port authorities, because origin port and destination port and inverted are also dependent on each other.
Yeah. So your vision is ports around the world,
Yes,
with control towers collaborating, orchestrating.
global control tower connectivity.
Well, thank you very much. That's a very interesting vision. We have been talking to Marie Hugo of JDA Software. Thank you very much.
Thank you.